Moonlight skims the sleek tar, black holes rocking at anchor, turning them into shards of obsidian scattered across the Saronic Gulf. Faces smeared with temple ash, begging for berths on any vessel headed to Salamis. They carry nothing but what democracy placed inside them: free speech. Restless skepticism, a conviction that argument can refine truth like or in a furnace. Pericles is yet unborn, but the seed of his golden age rattles in these evacuees' chests. Across the straits, Themistocles, recently ostracized for audacity that outpaced polite politics, has convinced wary Spartans, prickly Corinthians, and proud Aeginetans to lash their fleets into a single, quarreling armada. Thermopylae's heroic stand has slowed Xerxes, but not stopped him. Leonidas lies cold beneath Persian spears, and the Hellespont still trembles under pontoon bridges that bind Asia to Europe like a brazen vow. Inland, Xerxes' infantry columns devour the countryside grain by grain, toppling shrines, requisitioning livestock, drafting local guides at sword point. Greek hoplites cannot hope to match those numbers on land, and every polis strategist knows it. Only on water, where a trireme speed depends on citizen muscle more than aristocratic lineage, does the playing field tilt. Themistocles' plan is as radical as the democracy that nurtured him: lure Persia into the needle-thin channels of Salamis, where superior numbers become a liability, where the Persian habit of fighting in precise but rigid divisions cannot unfold, and where every wind change, every current swirl, favors home crews acquainted with these capricious tides since childhood. To craft that lure, he dispatches a trusted slave, Sisinus. With a seemingly traitorous message, the allied fleet is fracturing. Morale is brittle. Attack now before dawn's first blush. Xerxes, craving swift finality, bites. All-night lanterns bob among his vessels as admirals jockey for frontline glory, crowding the strait in tight ranks, a serpent squeezing itself into a bottle. Listen, oarlocks creak like bones in their sockets. Men whisper prayers for dawn that might never come. And somewhere among 1,000 wooden prows, an owl screeches, as though Athena herself reminds the sleepless that wisdom is watching. On the shore behind you, Athens lies half-ruined, its temples gutted by Persian torches, its acropolis stripped of statues now smelted into spearheads for a foreign king. Yet here in this narrow strait between Salamis and mainland Greece, tenacious hope huddles inside cramped triremes crewed by fishermen. Farmers, potters, anyone who could grip an oar or heft a javelin. Across the water, the Persian fleet sprawls in arrogant geometry. Towering Phoenician quinquiremes, Cilician horse transports, Egyptian cedar galleys, whose prows flare like cobra hoods. Their bronze-clad rams glitter in starlight, each capable of splintering a Greek hull in one heartbeat. At their rear glides the king of kings himself, Xerxes, enthroned upon a cliffside throne, draped in silk as black as a moonless sea. He plans to crush the last spark of defiance before breakfast, to watch democracy drown beneath the tidal wave of Asia, while his scribes tallied the glory. But beneath these Greek decks, rowers exhale in unison, their pulses thread together, weaving a single will around a ragged confederation of city-states that scarcely trust one another. Tonight, Themistocles, son of a working-class father and architect of Athenian sea power, will gamble the legacy of Homeric valor and Socratic inquiry on a trap baited with illusion. If it snaps shut, history will pivot on the crack. If it fails, the word Greece may become a footnote in a Persian tax ledger. Midnight at Salamis is not merely a naval engagement, it is philosophy afloat on pine planks, steering by starlight toward either eclipse or dawn. The air over Athens still reeks of charcoal and melted bronze when refugees crowd the docks. Dawn refuses to break. Low clouds blot the eastern horizon, smearing moon silver into pewter. Greek helmsmen, following Themistocles' prearranged signals, feign disorder. Light infantry armed with grappling hooks try to board. At sector center, Ikari on trireme, hooks an AI net in prow, its marines vaulting the gap with curved copus blades. For a moment, Greek and Carian fight toe-to-toe, shields locked, bronze helmets clanging as headbutts amplify sword thrusts. Blood slicks pine planks. Men stumble, vanish beneath churning oars, screams swallowed by wake, yet to port. A Corinthian squadron performs the kyklos maneuver, spiraling inward to swarm an isolated Egyptian transport.
Ow.
Their rams hammer sequentially, corkscrewing splinters until the Egyptian keel snaps, The sea gulps it down, backing water just enough to mimic retreat. Scribes ink feverish notes, capturing a narrative destined to become imperial propaganda until the pattern in those notes shifts. Instead of Greek hulls crumbling, Persian prows jam together, unable to row or turn. Rear columns slam into friendlies, snapping bow timbers. Toppling mast rigging that entangles oars like netted gulls, Greek helmsmen exploit every snarl, darting into gaps so tight there, where blades graze enemy hulls, each pass leaving another hole, another sinking flag. What began as conquest morphs into aquatic traffic disaster under the watchful eyes of a monarch who measured the Hellespont with chains of pontoon bridges, yet miscalculated humility. Persian captains, mistaking ruse for panic, surge forward, columns bunching in the choke point. Themistocles gives the nod. A loy double-reeded pipe shriek, an eerie melody that slices through din. Greek drums hammer a new cadence. Strike, pause, hold. Rowers lean as one. 200 triremes leap like race horses from the starting gate. Their bronze beaks glint with murderous clarity. Each forge 2 split planks and spill rowers into hungry surf. The distance closes in heartbeats. When impact comes, it erupts in an unholy crunch of cedars shattered, sinew severed, and lungs expelled of hope. The Athenian flagship skewers a Phoenician quinquereme amidships, oars snapping like ribs, water gushing into exposed belly. Marines leap across the breach, spearing deckhands still stunned by whiplash. All along the line, similar gore flowers bloom. Greek triremes dart and ram, then backwater to free their beaks before the corpse ship pulls them under, a deadly dance learned in Piraeus shipyards. Rehearsed on moonlit test runs, now performed before gods and kings. A hush settles so absolute that you can hear the slap of seaweed against hull planking and the muted cough of a sleepless marine. Beneath each Greek deck, 170 rowers sit on 3 staggered tiers called thronites, zigots, and thalamites. Their hands blistered raw, they clench leather-wrapped or handles worn smooth by years of chores and coastal races. A bosun passes down the aisle, tapping shoulders, murmuring the drum cadence soon to come. At the bow, bronze-armored hoplites adjust crested helmets in cramped lines. 1 foot braced against the gunwale, 2 steady spears eager for first contact. Among them stands an aging playwright named Aeschylus, already shaping metaphors for a future stage if the fates let him see another curtain rise. Then, across the water, a trumpet keens, thin but rising, answered by 1,000 echoes, until the gulf rings like a bronze bell struck by giants. Persian war drums thunder, and o'er banks dip, sending concentric ripples corralling moonlight into broken mirrors. The first collision is not wood against wool, but the Persians are not novices. Sidonian captains wheel broad-beam vessels to catch Greek flanks. Archers pepper open decks with arrow hail. High on his marble viewing platform, Xerxes watches the chaos unfold. Mid-morning light finally bleeds through cloud cover, revealing a waterway carpeted with debris. Broken oars, splintered yardarms. Floating shields painted with Persian lotus motifs, now streaked red. Greek rowers, lungs burning from hours of anaerobic fury, swap out with reserves where possible. Spotting the royal ensign, Themistocles signals nearby Athenian marines. Greek triremes, lighter and shallower drafted, give chase into open sea. Surviving allied triremes limp toward Salamis, hulls patched with spare planks, decks reeking of pitch and iron oxide. Rowers collapse where they sit, muscles trembling, some weeping from relief, others from the horror of what they witnessed. On shore, refugees rush waist-deep into surf to greet them, pressing figs, wine, and kisses upon men still spattered with enemy blood. Healers spread red mats, set fractured arms, cauterize spear wounds with bronze, heated in bonfires built from driftwood and broken Persian oars. Throughout the night, pyres flicker along the beach, tributes to warriors, whose names will be carved into marble steely once Athens is retaken and artisans return. Harrying stragglers, capturing supply tenders, stuffed with silver derricks and fine linens, destined for a victory parade that will never parade. One Aenetan vessel intercepts a Sidonian flagship fleeing south, its decks stacked with captured Greek statues, intended as palace trophies. Aenetan marines smash the loot into the sea, symbolically returning stolen gods to saltwater anonymity, who surge onto the enemy deck in a fury fueled by memories of abandoned hearths. In the melee, Ariobenes is hurled overboard. Legend claims he is impaled on a Greek spear, mid-fall, body forever lost to fathoms thick with splinters of shattered empire. Most simply tighten grip and keep pulling, for there is no halftime in a fight for civilizational oxygen. On the Persian right wing, Artemisia of Halicarnassus commands a carry-on contingent with lethal pragmatism. Seeing the tide turn, she deliberately rams a damaged ally ship to mask escape, fooling a pursuing Athenian captain into believing her vessel Greek. Xerxes, witnessing the strike, reportedly praises her courage ignorant of the deception while his fleet disintegrates in mounting eddies of panic. Greek losses mount too. Spartiate Triarch, unfamiliar with agile naval tactics, attempts to board a Sylacine troop ship head-on, ignoring orders to prioritize ramming. A volley of Persian arrows drops half his marines before they clear the rail. The hoplites retreat under covering javelins hurled by an Athenian-adjacent ship, both crews cursing cultural stereotypes even as they bleed together. The unity that Themistocles coaxed from distrust is tested plank by plank, life by life. Yet despair never finds purchase. For every glance shoreward reveals wives, sisters, and elderly clinging to Salamis cliffs, shouting songs drowned by wind, but not by resolve. By noon, the straits' currents run slick with oil and gore, the water a shifting mosaic of blue and rust. Greek captains, who once bickered over pay, now signal each other with improvised flags, coordinating thrust lines like weavers on a common loom. They force remaining Persian squadrons toward the shallows where larger holes ground on sandbars, rendering their rams impotent. From the heights, Xerxes finally grasps the geometry of his doom. Every extra ship he commands is now an obstacle to maneuver. Each new order a pebble dropped into whitewater already raging with conflicting wake patterns. Meanwhile, Themistocles rose ahead in a small pentaconter, scouting for the Persian admiral Ariobenes, rumored to be Xerxes' half-brother. As afternoon light leans westward, the strait echoes with Persian horns calling retreat. But withdrawal in congested channels proves deadlier than advance. When shadows stretch long and crimson over calmer water, Themistocles signals recall. High atop his now silent promontory, Xerxes orders beacons lit to guide surviving ships north toward the Hellespont. His scribes scratch revised casualty tables, omitting the king's earlier boasts. The great monarch who lashed the sea for disobedience now punishes Phoenician captains for cowardice, executing some to smother royal shame. He will leave a rearguard under Mardonius to salvage conquest on land, but withdraw the bulk of his fleet, a lone Samian pilot. Captured while scouting the strait's depth, presents himself in chains aboard the royal flagship. Xerxes asks, why so small a federation bested so vast an empire? The pilot answers that Greek crews compete even against allies. Each man rows as if the gods are wagering glory on his individual stroke. Against such hunger, even kings find appetite scant, he says. Xerxes orders the man freed, then retires into his silence his courtiers dare not breach. Nights later, crossing the Hellespont under autumn gales, the King of Kings will study the same stars that watched over Salamis and wonder why they bore witness without intervention. Conceding that water is an element not even great kings can command when outwitted, sacrificing bulls on makeshift altars hammered together from driftwood and repurposed Persian shields, the entrails speak of cautious optimism. Heavy with grain, streaked with healthy color, an oracle from Delphi, arriving by galley 3 days too late to taste battle smoke, announces that Apollo's verse had always hinted at a wooden wall saving Athens. She presents this as proof of divine endorsement for Themistocles' naval gamble. Skeptics note the ambiguity of oracles after the fact, but few care the outcome is indisputable. Bards begin composing victory odes before the fires beneath the bowls have cooled. All night the strait exhales the groan of hulls settling, absorbing the sensory debris for a future trilogy he will entitle Per Se. He listens to rowers recount the percussion of rams against hulls, the geysers of seawater and blood, the frantic sight of enemy hands scrabbling at severed decks. 1 Corinthians tells how he saw his reflection in a Phoenician shield, a heartbeat, before shattering it with a spear thrust, as though stabbing his own doubt. Aeschylus files the story away. Audiences crave mirrors more than marble. The hiss of pitch sealing fresh seams, Spartan Admiral Eurybiades' eyes rimmed red from sleepless command. Commends Athenian seamanship, yet reminds the gathering that land war looms. Corinthian envoys argue for immediate pursuit of the shattered Persian fleet to the Hellespont, to sever Xerxes' bridge and trap his army in Greece. Themistocles, sensing that too much Spartan pride will balk at chasing a beaten enemy, proposes a subtler weapon. Dispatch heralds to Ionia and Cyprus proclaiming Persian defeat. Let rebellion wilt supply lines, he suggests, while Greeks fortify their leagues. Most agree, but dissent flickers. Gina wants tangible spoils. Megara wants reassurance. Her exposed coast will not become Persia's next landing ground. The council splinters, reconvenes, splinters again. The habit of quarrel is resilient, even among recent shipmates, yet beneath the bickering pulses, a new confidence. They are disputing how to spend victory, not how to prevent obliteration. The low sob of men who have outlived glorious euphoria and now face the ledger of lives spent. Themistocles walks the shoreline, cloak stiff with dried brine, noting each shattered oar as though it were a voting pebble cast for or against the future. He pauses beside the corpse of a Persian mariner washed up in lamplight, jewels still braided in the man's beard. A lesser commander might pluck the treasure. Themistocles lets the tide claim it, whispering that the true reward was written on the water at dawn. Behind him, children scamper among the wreckage, salvaging bronze nails to hammer into household Schreiensteine, reliquaries of freedom whose value only a besieged culture can appraise. When day breaks, the Allied Council convenes on Salamis' highest ridge. Xerxes, meanwhile, learns humility by increments. Back at Salamis, priests perform rites of thanksgiving. Aeschylus wanders the beach each sunset. Winter nips the Aegean. Survivors return to charred Athens, rebuilding hearths with timber hauled from Mount Parnes. Women plaster temple wounds with clay mixed from fallen columns. Children, uncoached, invent games in which they steer toy triremes along rain gutters, shouting orders in squeaky imitation of bosuns. Themistocles drafts plans for Piraeus fortification. For generations, schoolboys will declaim Herodotus's account of Artemisia ramming her ally. When Churchill addresses Parliament in 1940, he invokes the spirit of Salamis to rally an outgunned island navy. When NASA engineers christen a command module simulator, they nickname it Themistocles, trusting that audacity married to math can outmaneuver Leviathans, WHETHER, Persian triremes, or gravitational pulls. Even pop culture winks. Submarine captains quote Aeschylus before silent running. Politicians call opponents modern Xerxes, and marathon finishers receive medals shaped like ancient galleys, cutting decisive wakes. Brandishing the anecdote whenever debates arise over cunning versus loyalty. Marathon taught that citizen soldiers could repel an empire. Salamis proves citizens can master technology and environment to multiply courage. The two battles bookend Greek confidence, forging a psychescape where philosophy, art, and politics dare to climb heights once forbidden by fear of foreign retribution, arguing that sea walls must match city walls if Greek liberty is to ride each tide. Some Athenians balk at cost. But he frames the expense as insurance on yesterday's miracle. So persuasive is his vision that even reluctant merchants tithe cedar and silver. Dreaming, he still feels the bench vibration. When bronze beak met cedar rib, he remembers the splash of bodies, the sudden lightness when enemy rowers ceased resistance and water filled their lungs. Victory, he realizes, is heavier to bear than anyone warned. Across the Aegean, Mardonius camps Persian remnants in Thessaly, couriers knitting a fragile line back to Sardis. He sends envoys to Athens, offering autonomy and reconstruction funds. If they desert the Hellenic League, after Salamis, Athens grows bolder, levying tribute under the Delian League that eventually morphs into empire by another name. Naval supremacy tilts, trade routes its way. Pottery stamped with the owl of Athena floods markets from Sicily to Egypt. Resentment kindles in Sparta, Corinth, Thebes embers that will flare into the Peloponnesian War. That civil conflict, too, can trace one origin line back to the Straits of Salamis. For triumph breeds ambition, and ambition rarely consults caution. Themistocles refuses, yet he stages a public debate to expose Persia's charatanistic diplomacy, letting the populace veto capitulation themselves. Greek shipwrights experiment with fully enclosed decks to shield rowers from archers. Phoenicians reinforce prow struts with iron bands, claiming their beaks will never again founder on Greek cunning. Even Carthage dispatches spies to measure trireme length, suspecting that Mediterranean hegemonies now hinge on hull physics as much as phalanx cohesion. Somewhere in the archives of Syracuse, a young engineer named Archimedes will one day study these blueprints, pondering how levers of force might turn ships into floating siege engines. That theatrical transparency cements citizen buy-in more than any spear could. Sparta, heartened, promises hoplites for the coming spring. Seeds planted at Salamis germinate on dry land. Plataea and Mycale will bloom into twin harvests that finally uproot Persia from Greek soil and shoreline alike. Still, the victory's silhouette casts paradoxical shadows. Technologically, the battle accelerates nautical arms races. Culturally, Salamis embeds itself like a lodestone in the Western narrative. Fast forward millennia, and you'll still feel the pulse. Yet none of those echoes matter to the rower from Phaleron, who wakes nightly. So what of us? Watchers from centuries away? We scroll feeds, swipe distractions. Pilot lives through channels as crowded with data as Salamis was with holes. The broken masts are gone, the Gulf placid. Yet if you listen between lapping waves, you might catch the echo of overlapping orbits. Syncopated like a colossal heart, it asks. When the next existential tide rises, will you row in furious unity? Or will you crowd the bottleneck like Xerxes' captains, each vying for front rank until chaos writes its own decree? We too risk drowning in information unless guided by cunning helmsman values, intellect, community to steer. Themistocles' genius was not sheer nerve, but the ability to align dispersed wills into coherent thrust at the moment's stakes peaked. That lesson, like moonlight on still water, waits for anyone who looks. In the hush that follows this voyage, imagine the strait at midnight once more. If that question stirs you, keep the current flowing. Share this story with someone who thinks history is a museum piece, rather than a navigational chart. Smash the like button the way an Athenian prow smashed. Phoenician cedar takes less effort than a single R stroke, but propels our channel past algorithmic shoals. Subscribe and ring the bell so our upcoming expeditions through the roaring passes of Thermopylae, the misty fields of Plataea, the winding alleys of Stalingrad, find you on deck, ready. Drop your hardest questions in the comments. We scan them faster than an owl's wingbeat over Salamis, because knowledge, like the sea, favors those who venture out together under uncertain stars. And tonight, as ever, wisdom is watching.